are nights when the world grows silent, yet the heart does not. The lights are dimmed, the conversations have ended, the duties of the day have been gently set aside, and still somewhere beneath the surface something remains awake. A tightness in the chest, a restlessness in the breath, a memory that replays itself like a distant echo. Resentment rarely announces itself loudly. It does not always arrive as rage or sharp words. More often it lingers quietly. It settles into the corners of the mind and wraps itself around the heart. It becomes a subtle tension in the shoulders, a heaviness behind the eyes, a quiet resistance to what has already happened. Inner tension disturbs peace not because it shouts, but because it hums continuously in the background of our awareness. It is like a small stone placed inside a shoe. We may continue walking, we may even forget it is there for a while, but with every step, it presses gently against us. Over time, that gentle pressure becomes irritation, then fatigue, then pain. Resentment works in the same way. It begins as a wound. A word spoken harshly, a promise broken, a moment of betrayal, a disappointment that did not match the image we held in our hearts. The mind, seeking protection, holds on to the memory. It replays it, analyzes it, defends itself against it. If I remember this, the mind whispers, I will not be hurt again. But remembering is not the same as healing. When we hold on to anger and emotional pain, we believe we are guarding ourselves. In truth, we are guarding the wound. There is a hidden weight in this guarding. It is invisible, yet it shapes our posture, our breath, our tone of voice. It influences how we respond to others. It colors the way we see the world. A heart burdened with resentment cannot rest easily. It is always bracing, always preparing, always holding a quiet argument within itself. And so peace feels distant, not because peace is unavailable, but because our hands are already full. Imagine trying to receive something beautiful while your fists are tightly clenched. The gift may be offered, the moment may be gentle, but the tension in your grip prevents you from feeling it fully. Resentment tightens the grip of the heart. Inner tension is the body's reflection of that grip. You may notice it most clearly at night. During the day, distractions are plentiful. Tasks occupy the mind. Conversations fill the silence. Movement keeps emotions in motion. But at night, when the world slows down, what we have been carrying begins to speak. The mind revisits unfinished stories. The body remembers conversations. The heart reopens doors it tried to close. And sleep becomes difficult, not because the bed is uncomfortable, but because the heart is. There is a quiet truth here. We do not suffer only from what happened. We suffer from how tightly we continue to hold it. This holding creates friction inside us. It is the friction between what was and what we wish had been. It is the tension between reality and expectation. It is the silent refusal to allow life to have unfolded as it did. And yet, life has already unfolded. No amount of rethinking can undo a moment. No amount of anger can reverse time. The event has passed, but the resistance remains. This resistance is exhausting. We rarely notice how much energy it consumes. Like a device running too many applications in the background, the mind drains itself replaying scenarios, defending positions, crafting arguments that will never be spoken. The body follows the mind's lead. The shoulders lift slightly, the jaw tightens, the breath becomes shallow, sleep turns fragile. Peace is disturbed not by the past itself, but by our continued struggle with it. There is something deeply human in the struggle. We want fairness. We want understanding. We want acknowledgement of our pain. When these are not given, something inside us hardens. It says, I will not let this go. And so we carry it. At first, carrying it feels strong. It feels like standing up for ourselves. It feels like dignity. But over time, the weight reveals itself. We realize that the resentment we hold toward another has quietly become a resentment we carry within ourselves. It is a heavy companion. It walks beside us into new relationships. It sits beside us during moments that could have been joyful. It whispers caution when trust begins to bloom, and slowly, without intending to, we begin to close. This closing is the opposite of peace. Peace is openness. It is spaciousness. It is the ability to rest in the present moment without resistance. Resentment narrows that space. Inner tension tightens it. So how do we soften? How do we release what feels justified? How do we let go of pain without denying that it hurt? This is where wisdom becomes essential. Not harsh wisdom, not intellectual analysis, but gentle wisdom. The kind that does not force the heart open, but invites it. There is a teaching found in contemplative traditions that reminds us clinging is the root of suffering. Clinging to pleasure, clinging to identity, clinging to opinions, clinging to pain. When something happens, there is the event itself. Then there is our attachment to it. The event may last a moment. The attachment can last a lifetime. We believe that holding on gives us control. In truth, it binds us to the very thing we wish to move beyond. Wisdom whispers a different possibility. It suggests that letting go is not weakness. It is clarity. It is seeing that anger does not punish the other person. It exhausts the one who carries it. It is recognizing that inner tension is a signal, not an enemy. A signal that something inside us is asking to be released. The path toward release does not begin with denial. It begins with honesty. Yes, I was hurt. Yes, I felt betrayed. Yes, I'm still carrying this. There is no need to rush this acknowledgement. No need to make it dramatic. Simply noticing is enough. When we pause and gently observe the tension within us, something subtle shifts. We move from being consumed by the feeling to witnessing it. In that witnessing, space appears, and space is the beginning of freedom. Wisdom teaches that all things are impermanent. Emotions rise and fall. Thoughts appear and dissolve. Even the deepest wounds change over time. But when we cling to resentment, we attempt to freeze a moment in place. We refuse to let it evolve. We keep it alive through repetition. Letting go, then, is not erasing the past. It is allowing it to move. Like a leaf floating down a stream, the memory can be seen, acknowledged, and permitted to drift away. We do not need to jump into the water and retrieve it again and again. This is why letting go is an art. And art cannot be forced. It cannot be commanded into existence. It requires patience, sensitivity, practice. If someone told you to just relax, you would likely feel more tension. Force creates resistance. Pressure creates hardness. Letting go is different. It is more like opening a hand slowly. At first, the fingers may resist. They have been clenched for a long time. The muscles are accustomed to holding. But with gentle awareness, they begin to soften. Not because they are ordered to, but because they realize they no longer need to grip so tightly. Resentment often masks a deeper pain. Underneath anger, there's usually sadness. Underneath tension, there's often fear. Fear of being hurt again, fear of being unseen, fear of not mattering. When we approach ourselves with compassion instead of judgment, the hardness begins to melt. Compassion says it makes sense that you felt this way. Compassion does not justify harm, but it acknowledges humanity. And in that acknowledgement, the heart feels safe enough to loosen. Imagine sitting quietly with your own pain as you would sit beside a dear friend. You would not shout at them for still feeling hurt. You would not demand that they move on instantly. You would offer presence. you can offer that same presence to yourself. Inner tension softens when it feels understood. Anger loosens when it feels seen. There is no need to force forgiveness, no need to rush towards some ideal of spiritual perfection. True release is gradual. It unfolds like a flower at its own pace. You may begin by simply noticing where resentment lives in your body. Is it in the chest, the stomach, the throat? Place your attention there, gently. Breathe. Not to change it, just to be with it. Often, what we resist intensifies. What we allow begins to dissolve. Letting go is not pushing something away. It is allowing it to complete its natural cycle. When rain falls, it eventually stops. When a wave rises, it eventually returns to the ocean. Emotions are no different. But if we build a wall against the wave, the impact feels violent. If we let it rise and fall, it passes through. The art of letting go lies in this quiet allowing. It is the courage to loosen the story we keep telling ourselves. The humility to admit that holding on to pain has not brought the peace we hoped for. The wisdom to choose freedom over being right. There is great dignity in this choice. Not the dignity of superiority, but the dignity of inner spaciousness. When we release resentment, we do not declare that what happened was acceptable. We simply declare that our peace is more important than replaying the wound. This shift changes everything. The body begins to soften. The breath deepens. Sleep approaches more easily. The heart, no longer braced for battle, rests. Peace is not something we create by force. It is something that remains when tension is no longer fed. And so this journey begins not with dramatic gestures, but with subtle awareness. Notice the weight you have been carrying. Notice how long you have been carrying it. Notice the quiet fatigue it has created. Then, without judgment, ask yourself, what would it feel like to set this down? Not forever, just for this moment. To unclench the fist, to soften the jaw, to exhale fully. Letting go is not a single act. It is a practice, a gentle returning, again and again. Each time resentment arises, you can meet it with awareness. Each time tension tightens, you can breathe into it. Slowly, the art reveals itself, not as a technique to master, but as a way of being, a way of moving through life with open hands. In the quiet of the night, when old memories try to claim your attention, you can whisper softly to yourself, it is safe to rest. It is safe to release. Nothing more needs to be defended right now. The past is already past. The present is waiting gently before you, and peace, which has never truly left, begins to return the moment you stop gripping what no longer needs to be held. Resentment does not always arrive as a storm. More often, it begins as a small, quiet flame, a moment that felt unfair, a word that lingered longer than it should have, a silence where there should have been understanding. At first, it is only warmth, an emotional response, natural and human. But when that warmth is not allowed to cool, when it is fed by repeated thoughts and silent arguments, it becomes something else. It becomes a quiet fire we carry within. From a psychological perspective, resentment is a form of unresolved anger mixed with hurt. It is not the sharp burst of rage that explodes and disappears. It is the slow burning feeling that remains when anger is suppressed, when pain is not acknowledged, when forgiveness feels impossible. It forms when the mind replays an event again and again, searching for a different ending. The mind says, this should not have happened. They should have known better. I deserved something else. These thoughts are attempts to restore balance. They are efforts to make sense of what felt unjust. In this way, resentment is not born from cruelty, it is born from wounded expectations. But spiritually, resentment carries a deeper meaning. It is attachment. Attachment to how things were supposed to be. Attachment to an image of ourselves as right, as innocent, as misunderstood. Attachment to the belief that holding on to pain protects us. In many contemplative traditions, suffering is said to arise not simply from events, but from clinging to pleasure, clinging to identity, clinging to grievances. Resentment is the clinging to injury. The event has passed, yet the mind keeps it alive. The body stores it, the heart circles it. Like a hand gripping a thorn, resentment hurts not only because of the thorn itself, but because we refuse to open the hand. There is a gentle teaching often attributed to the Buddha. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Gautama Buddha. Whether taken as literal scripture or later paraphrased, the wisdom in this saying is clear. Anger and resentment do not wound the person we direct them toward as much as they wound the one who carries them. Psychologically, resentment activates the body's stress response. The memory of the hurt triggers the same physical reactions as the original event. The heart rate increases slightly, muscles tighten, breathing becomes shallow. Even in stillness, the body prepares for conflict. Over time, this repeated activation becomes inner tension. You may notice it in subtle ways. A stiffness in the neck when a certain name is mentioned. A heaviness in the chest when recalling a past argument. A restless mind that refuses to settle into sleep. Resentment creates a constant low-level alertness. It whispers, "Be careful." It warns, "Do not trust too easily." It insists, "Do not forget what happened." This vigilance feels protective, but it is exhausting. The nervous system was not designed to remain in defense indefinitely. When it does, fatigue follows, irritability grows, joy becomes harder to access. Mental suffering deepens, not because the original wound was unbearable, but because it is reopened repeatedly. Imagine touching a bruise again and again throughout the day. It would never have time to heal. Resentment is the mental touching of the bruise. It keeps the past present. Spiritually, this constant return to the wound narrows our awareness. Instead of experiencing life freshly, we interpret new moments through old pain. We project yesterday onto today. A neutral comment may feel like criticism. A small delay may feel like abandonment. A misunderstanding may feel like betrayal. Resentment colors perception. And when perception is colored, peace fades. The illusion within resentment is subtle but powerful. It is the illusion of control. When we hold on to pain, we often believe we are maintaining power. We believe that remembering the injustice prevents it from happening again. We believe that releasing anger means approving of what was done, but these beliefs are illusions. Holding on to pain does not change the past. It does not rewrite the story. It does not guarantee safety. What it does is keep us bound to the moment we wish to escape. It creates a private courtroom inside the mind. We replay the evidence, we deliver closing arguments, we wait for an apology that may never come. Meanwhile, life continues outside the courtroom. The sun rises, people smile, opportunities for connection appear, but our attention remains fixed on the trial. This is the hidden cost of resentment. It occupies mental space, it consumes emotional energy, it narrows the heart. From a spiritual perspective, resentment is resistance to impermanence. Everything changes, every relationship evolves, every moment dissolves into the next. But resentment attempts to freeze a moment in time. It says, this should not have happened, and I will not allow it to pass. Yet life flows forward regardless. When we resist that flow, we create friction. Inner tension is that friction made physical. Have you ever noticed how difficult it is to relax when you are angry? Even if you lie down, close your eyes, and try to sleep, the body does not cooperate. Thoughts arise, conversations replay, the jaw tightens, the body mirrors the mind's grip. But what if resentment is not a sign of strength, but a sign of unprocessed grief? Underneath anger there is often sadness. Sadness that we were not understood. Sadness that something ended. Sadness that reality did not match our hope. If we never allow ourselves to feel that sadness fully, it hardens into resentment. Resentment is grief that has become armored. The armor feels strong, but it also isolates. When we carry resentment, we may begin to withdraw emotionally. We may build subtle walls. We may protect ourselves so thoroughly that we also block warmth and intimacy. The heart cannot selectively close. When it closes to pain, it also closes to joy. This is the spiritual consequence of resentment. It separates us from others, from the present moment, from our own softness. And yet, it is important to approach this understanding gently. Resentment is not a moral failure. It is a human response to hurt. It arises when we feel wronged and unseen. It arises when boundaries were crossed. It arises when expectations were broken. To understand resentment is not to judge it, it is to observe it with compassion. You might begin by asking quietly, what am I still holding on to? Where in my body do I feel it? Is it tight? Is it heavy? Is it sharp? Notice without trying to fix. Resentment thrives in unconsciousness. It softens in awareness. When you bring calm attention to the feeling, you step out of identification with it. Instead of saying, I am angry, you begin to see anger is present. This small shift changes everything. If anger is present, it can also change. It can rise and fall. It can be understood. It can be released. But if you are anger, there is no space for transformation. The illusion of control begins to dissolve. When you see that holding on to pain has not brought peace, ask yourself gently, has my resentment reduced my suffering? Has replaying this memory brought resolution? Has clinging to the story made my nights more restful? Often the honest answer is no, and in that honesty, a door opens. You may realize that what you truly desire is not revenge, not vindication, not superiority, but relief. Relief from the constant tension. Relief from the endless mental repetition. Relief from carrying something heavy for too long. There is another quiet teaching often attributed to the Buddha. You will not be punished for your anger. You will be punished by your anger. Gautama Buddha. Again, whether literal or interpretive, the insight remains gentle and clear. Anger is not a weapon we aim outward without consequence. It shapes the inner landscape of the one who holds it. To release resentment is not to excuse harm. It is to refuse further self-harm. It is to say, I no longer choose to carry this flame in my own hands. Imagine placing that flame down, not throwing it, not suppressing it, simply setting it on the ground and stepping back. Notice what happens in your body when you imagine this. Perhaps the shoulders lower slightly. Perhaps the breath deepens. Perhaps the heart feels a little more spacious. This spaciousness is the beginning of freedom. Understanding resentment means seeing both its origin and its cost. It means recognizing that what once felt protective has become restrictive. It means acknowledging that the illusion of control has kept us tied to the very moment we wish to transcend. But awareness is gentle. It does not demand immediate transformation. It invites patience. Tonight, as you prepare to rest, you might sit quietly with any lingering resentment, not to analyze it, not to solve it, just to notice it. Let the memory arise. If it wishes, let the body respond naturally, and instead of tightening against it, breathe softly. Say inwardly, this is pain, this is anger, this is human. Allow it to be there without feeding it with new thoughts. Like a fire without fresh wood, it will begin to quiet on its own. Resentment cannot survive indefinitely without attention and repetition. When awareness replaces rumination, its intensity fades. You do not need to force forgiveness tonight. You do not need to declare grand spiritual conclusions. Simply allow yourself to loosen the grip slightly. Even a small softening is enough. Even a single conscious breath is enough. Understanding is the first step in release. When you see clearly how resentment creates inner tension and mental suffering, you no longer cling to it blindly. You begin to recognize that peace is more valuable than being right. And as this recognition deepens, the quiet fire loses its fuel. The heart, once guarded and tense, begins to feel the possibility of rest, not because the past has changed, but because your relationship to it has. And in that subtle shift, from clinging to awareness, from control to acceptance, the mind grows quieter, the body softens, the night becomes kinder, and somewhere within, a gentle space opens where peace can finally enter. The Buddhist view on letting go. There is a quiet rhythm moving through all things. Morning becomes afternoon, afternoon softens into evening. The tide rises, then falls. Breath enters, then leaves. Nothing remains as it was. If you sit very still and listen, not with your ears but with your awareness, you may begin to sense this gentle law of change flowing beneath every moment. It is not dramatic. It does not announce itself loudly. It simply continues endlessly, faithfully. In Buddhist understanding, this truth is called anicca, impermanence. Impermanence is not a threat. It is not a punishment. It is simply the nature of reality. All conditions arise, linger for a while, and pass away. Thoughts do this. Emotions do this. Relationships, seasons, even entire civilizations follow this quiet pattern. And yet, much of our suffering comes from resisting this flow. We want pleasant moments to last forever. We want painful moments to disappear immediately. We want people to remain as we first knew them. We want ourselves to stay unchanged in ways that feel safe. But life does not stand still. Clinging is the attempt to hold what cannot be held. Imagine trying to grasp water in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips through your fingers. If you loosen your palms and allow them to cup gently, the water rests there for a time. But even then, it eventually moves. Clinging creates suffering because it denies the truth of movement. When something beautiful arises, we fear losing it. When something painful arises, we fear it will never end. Both fears are rooted in misunderstanding. Impermanence teaches us that nothing, neither joy nor sorrow, is permanent. There is a well-known verse from the Dhammapada: all conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. Dhammapada, to turn away from suffering, does not mean to reject life. It means to release the insistence that life conform to our preferences. Clinging says stay. Aversion says go. Wisdom says let it move. When we cling to a pleasant experience, we create anxiety about its loss. When we cling to a painful memory, we keep it alive beyond its natural lifespan. In both cases, we tighten against reality. This tightening is the root of inner tension. Consider a simple breath. If you inhale and refuse to exhale, discomfort arises quickly. The body knows that holding is unnatural. Breath must flow. The same is true of experience. Moments must be allowed to come and go. Letting go in this light is not an act of rejection. It is participation in the natural rhythm of life. But sometimes when people hear the phrase non-attachment, they misunderstand it. They imagine coldness. They imagine emotional distance. They imagine a detached indifference that feels almost lifeless. Yet true non-attachment is not indifference. Indifference says, I do not care. Non-attachment says, I care deeply, but I do not cling. There is warmth in non-attachment. There is presence. There is love without possession. Imagine holding a small bird in your hands. If you grip too tightly, you harm it. If you refuse to hold it at all, it may fall. But if you cradle it gently, allowing it freedom to move, there is both care and space. This is the spirit of non-attachment. It allows love to breathe. Indifference, by contrast, closes the heart. It builds walls. It numbs feeling. Non-attachment keeps the heart open, but flexible. You can love someone fully while knowing they are impermanent. You can enjoy a moment deeply while knowing it will pass. You can grieve a loss without clinging to bitterness. Non-attachment does not diminish experience. It purifies it. When you are not grasping, you are free to appreciate. When you are not resisting, you are free to learn. When you are not clinging to identity, you are free to evolve. Another gentle teaching attributed to the Buddha reminds us, in the end, only three things matter: how much you loved, how gently you lived, and how gracefully you let go of things not meant for you. Gautama Buddha, whether preserved exactly or passed down in spirit, this teaching carries a profound truth. Graceful letting go is not the opposite of love. It is love matured. When you cling to someone out of fear, that is attachment. When you allow them freedom, even at the risk of loss, that is love. When you cling to an identity, I am always right, I must not fail, I cannot be hurt, you create rigidity. But when you loosen these stories, you create space for growth. Impermanence becomes less frightening when you realize it applies equally to pain. The anxiety you feel tonight will not remain forever. The sadness in your chest will not last unchanged. Even the resentment you have carried for years is not fixed in stone. Everything moves, and if everything moves, then healing is possible. Compassion becomes essential in this process. Without compassion, letting go can feel harsh. It can feel like self-denial. But compassion softens the edges. Compassion says, it is understandable that you wanted this to last. Compassion says, it is natural that you feared losing it. Compassion says, you are not wrong for feeling pain. When you meet your clinging with kindness rather than judgment, something relaxes. You begin to see that attachment arose from longing, for safety, for love, for stability, fast. And longing itself is not wrong. It is simply human. Compassion transforms the process of letting go from a forced surrender into a gentle release. Imagine sitting beside a younger version of yourself, the one who first experienced the hurt you now cling to. Instead of scolding them for being attached, you place a hand on their shoulder. You say softly, I understand why you held on. You were trying to protect yourself. In that moment of inner kindness, the grip begins to loosen naturally because the heart no longer feels threatened. Compassion is a healing force because it dissolves the fear beneath attachment. When fear softens, clinging loses its urgency. The Dhammapada also offers this reflection. Hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal rule. Dhammapada, love here does not mean romantic affection. It means goodwill. It means the refusal to add more hardness to what is already painful. If someone has wronged you, Hatred binds you to them. Compassion releases you. Compassion does not require you to approve of harmful actions. It simply invites you to see the shared fragility of human beings. We are all imperfect. We are all learning. We all act from confusion at times. When you recognize this, resentment begins to soften into understanding, and understanding creates freedom. Freedom is not the absence of experience. It is the absence of bondage to experience. You can remember without reliving. You can love without clinging. You can grieve without hardening. This freedom is spacious. It feels like a deep exhale after holding your breath for too long. As you lie down tonight, you might gently reflect on impermanence. Notice the sensations in your body. They are changing moment by moment. Notice your thoughts. They arise, linger briefly, and dissolve. Even the idea of you is fluid, constantly shaped by new experiences, new insights, new feelings. There is no fixed entity to defend endlessly. There is only a living process unfolding. When you stop fighting that unfolding, rest becomes possible. Letting go is not a dramatic gesture. It is often invisible. It happens quietly like snow melting under morning light. You may not notice the exact moment it occurs. One day you simply realize that a memory no longer tightens your chest. A name no longer stirs anger. A past event feels distant, like a story that happened to someone else. That is the fruit of non-attachment. Not numbness, but lightness. Imagine placing every worry, every old resentment, every clung-to identity into a small boat. You set the boat gently onto a calm river. You do not push it violently. You do not chase after it. You simply watch as the current carries it away. The river does not resist. The boat does not argue. Everything moves according to its nature. You remain on the shore, present, breathing, aware. This is the Buddhist view of letting go. To trust the river, to soften the grip, to allow life to flow through you rather than against you. As the night deepens, you might whisper inwardly, "All things change. I do not need to hold so tightly. I can care without clinging. I can love and still let go." Feel how these words settle in the body. Perhaps the shoulders drop slightly, perhaps the jaw relaxes, perhaps the heart feels a little wider. Impermanence is not something to fear. It is the reason healing is possible. Non-attachment is not coldness. It is warmth without chains. Compassion is not weakness. It is strength gentle enough to release what no longer serves peace. And in this gentle release, freedom quietly appears, not as a distant goal, but as the natural state of a heart, no longer gripping what must, by its very nature, move on. There are stories the mind tells in words, and there are stories the body tells in silence. Long before a thought is fully formed, the body has already responded. A subtle tightening in the chest, a faint contraction in the stomach, a nearly invisible lift of the shoulders, as if preparing to defend against something that may not even arrive. Inner tension is the body's whisper. It does not shout, it does not argue, it simply tightens. When we experience emotional pain, fear, resentment, grief, anxiety, the nervous system shifts into protection. Muscles contract, breath shortens, the heart beats more quickly, blood moves toward areas needed for action. This response is ancient and intelligent. It was designed to help us survive danger. But the body does not easily distinguish between a physical threat and an emotional one. A harsh memory can trigger the same tightening as a sudden noise. A remembered argument can cause the same shallow breath as standing at the edge of a cliff. And so, Even when we lie in a quiet room at night, with doors locked and lights dimmed, the body may remain alert. The mind says, "It's over." The body says, "Not yet." Emotional tension manifests physically in ways that are both obvious and subtle. Sometimes it is clear, a clenched jaw, a knotted stomach, a headache that pulses behind the eyes. Other times it is quiet, a slight restlessness in the legs, a persistent fatigue, a feeling that something is off but cannot be named. The body is always speaking. When sadness is unexpressed, it may settle heavily in the chest. When anger is suppressed, it may harden in the shoulders or jaw. When fear lingers, it may flutter in the belly like a trapped bird. These sensations are not enemies. They are messages. The body does not create tension to punish you. It creates tension to protect you. It braces in anticipation of impact. It tightens in preparation for action, but when the impact never comes, when the threat exists only in memory or imagination, the tension has nowhere to go, and so it remains. Over time, chronic emotional resistance becomes chronic physical holding. We might not notice it during the busyness of the day. Movement disguises it. Conversation distracts from it. But at night, when everything slows, the body's quiet effort to stay guarded becomes more apparent. You lie down. The room is calm, yet something inside feels restless. This is the body still carrying yesterday. The connection between mind and body is not a poetic metaphor. It is a living reality. Every thought produces a chemical reaction. Every emotion shifts physiology. Every memory echoes through muscle and nerve. If the mind repeatedly revisits pain, the body repeatedly responds. Imagine bending a small branch again and again in the same direction. Eventually, it will begin to curve naturally that way. The body curves around repeated emotional patterns. But just as patterns are formed, they can also soften. This is where mindfulness becomes a gentle companion. Mindfulness is not force, it is not analysis, it is not a demand that the body relax. Mindfulness is simple awareness. It is the quiet act of noticing what is present without trying to immediately change it. When tension arises, our instinct is often to resist it. We say inwardly, "I don't want this." We attempt to distract ourselves. We tighten further in our effort to escape the tightness. But resistance adds a second layer of tension. There is the original contraction in the body, and then there is the mental resistance against that contraction. Two layers. Mindfulness removes the second. Instead of saying "this should not be here," mindfulness says "this is here." Instead of pushing away discomfort, it gently turns toward it. You might begin by noticing your breath, not changing it, just noticing, is it shallow or deep, fast or slow, smooth or slightly uneven. Then bring attention to your shoulders. Are they lifted slightly? Are they resting heavily? Notice the jaw. Is it clenched? Is it relaxed? Each observation is like a soft beam of light entering a dark room. The tension may not disappear instantly, but something shifts when it is seen. There is a well-loved teaching often attributed to the Buddha. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. Gautama Buddha. Peace comes from within, not because the outer world is irrelevant, but because the way we relate to inner experience shapes everything. When you bring calm awareness to tension, you are no longer unconsciously ruled by it. You become the observer rather than the contraction itself. Imagine sitting beside a river. The water flows steadily. Leaves pass by. Small ripples form and dissolve. If you jump into the river each time a leaf floats past, you will exhaust yourself. But if you sit on the shore and simply watch, the river continues without requiring your intervention. Emotions are like that river. Tension is like a ripple. Mindfulness is sitting on the shore. Observing feelings without judgment is perhaps the most tender aspect of this practice. Judgment tightens, awareness softens. If you feel anxiety and immediately label it as weakness, the body tightens further. If you feel sadness and tell yourself you should be over it by now, the chest contracts. But if you feel anxiety and gently say, anxiety is here, something opens. If you feel sadness and whisper, sadness is present, the heart softens slightly. The feeling may remain for a time, but it is no longer fighting against your rejection. When you observe without judgment, you create space. And space is healing. Imagine holding a small, frightened animal. If you grip it tightly, it struggles. If you drop it carelessly, it runs in panic. But if you hold it gently, allowing it to feel safe, it eventually calms. Your emotions are like that animal. They calm in the presence of safety. Judgment is not safe. Compassionate awareness is. Tonight, as you lie in stillness, you might experiment with this gentle observation. Bring attention to one area of tension in your body. Perhaps the neck, perhaps the stomach, perhaps the chest. Place your awareness there like a warm hand. Do not demand relaxation. Simply notice the sensation. Is it tight, pulsing, heavy, subtle? Stay with it for a few breaths. Often, when attention rests steadily on sensation without resistance, the body begins to release naturally. It may be gradual, a small softening, a slight deepening of breath, or the tension may shift to another place, revealing where it has been hiding. This is not failure. It is communication. The body is saying, here is another place that needs kindness. Inner tension is often cumulative. A difficult conversation here, a disappointment there, a fear about tomorrow, a memory from years ago. Each leaves a small imprint. Mindfulness does not erase the past, but it prevents the past from continuing to imprint the present unconsciously. When you feel a tightening in the chest, instead of thinking, something is wrong with me, you might ask gently, what is this feeling protecting? Perhaps it is protecting vulnerability. Perhaps it is protecting disappointment. Perhaps it is simply an old habit. Habits of tension can be deeply ingrained. Some people have been bracing since childhood, bracing against criticism, bracing against unpredictability, bracing against the possibility of being misunderstood. The body learned to stay slightly guarded, and that guarding became normal. Mindfulness slowly retrains the body. It teaches the nervous system that, in this moment, it is safe to soften. Safety is not only physical, it is also internal. When you stop fighting your own sensations, the body recognizes the absence of inner threat. Breath becomes an anchor in this practice. The breath is always present, always moving, always returning. When you notice the inhale, feel how it expands the ribs slightly. When you notice the exhale, feel how it invites release. The exhale is especially powerful. It is the body's natural letting go. With each exhale, imagine tension draining downward, not forced, just allowed. Shoulders melt slightly, the forehead smooths, the tongue rests gently in the mouth. You may begin to notice that tension is not solid. It fluctuates, it pulses, it shifts. This realization is important. If tension is not solid, it is not permanent. It is a dynamic process, and what is dynamic can change. Observing without judgment also means allowing pleasant sensations. Sometimes we become so focused on discomfort that we forget to notice ease. Perhaps your hands feel warm and relaxed. Perhaps the bed supports you comfortably. Perhaps the breath feels smooth for a moment. Notice these too. Awareness is not only for pain, it is for the full spectrum of experience. The more you practice this balanced noticing, the less reactive the mind becomes. When tension arises, it is met with curiosity rather than alarm. curiosity is gentle. It asks, "What is this?" instead of declaring, "This is bad." Over time, this shift in attitude transforms the relationship between mind and body. Instead of a battleground, the body becomes a teacher. Instead of an enemy, sensation becomes guidance. You begin to trust that emotions, when allowed to move naturally, complete themselves. Fear rises, peaks and fades. Sadness swells, trembles and softens. Anger heats, pulses and cools. It is resistance that prolongs them. Awareness allows them to follow their natural arc. There is another quiet teaching associated with mindful awareness. Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. Gautama Buddha. When attention rests in the present moment, tension often decreases, because in this exact moment right now, as you lie here breathing, there may be no immediate danger. The mind may replay old scenes. It may anticipate future ones. But the body, here and now, can be reminded gently, this moment is safe. Feel the surface beneath you. Notice the temperature of the air. Hear the faint sounds in the distance. These simple anchors ground awareness, and grounding calms the nervous system. The body begins to trust again. Trust that it does not need to brace continuously. Trust that it can rest. You might imagine each breath as a wave washing through the body. On the inhale, the wave rises gently from the feet to the crown of the head. On the exhale, it recedes, carrying tension back into the ocean. Wave after wave, no rush, no demand, just rhythm. If thoughts arise, and they will, notice them as part of the landscape. Do not chase them. Do not argue with them. Let them drift like clouds across a wide sky. Your awareness is the sky. Tension, thoughts, sensations, they are weather. Weather changes. The sky remains. As you continue resting in this gentle observation, something subtle happens. The boundary between mind and body feels less rigid. Thoughts are felt physically. Sensations are recognized mentally. Everything becomes part of one seamless field of experience. And within that field, there is space. Spaciousness is the opposite of tension. Where there is space, contraction has room to soften. Where there is space, emotion has room to move. Where there is space, sleep can gently arrive. You do not need to solve every problem tonight. You do not need to untangle every memory. You only need to be here, breathing, noticing, allowing. Let awareness be soft. Let the body be as it is. If tension remains, let it remain without adding frustration. If relaxation comes, welcome it without grasping. This is the balance. This is the quiet meeting of body and mind. Gradually, the body learns a new pattern. Instead of bracing at every remembered discomfort, it pauses. Instead of tightening in sensation, it listens. And listening itself is healing. Feel the weight of your body now. Feel how the earth supports you without effort. You do not have to hold yourself up. You do not have to defend against this moment. You can rest. Breath by breath, sensation by sensation. Awareness gently illuminating what was once unconscious. Inner tension may not disappear instantly, but it no longer defines you. It is simply part of the unfolding experience, arising, lingering, dissolving. And in this gentle observation, the body gradually remembers its natural state, not rigidity, not defense, but ease, softness, and the quiet rhythm of breath flowing freely through a being that no longer needs to resist its own experience. A path of soft surrender. There comes a quiet moment in every healing journey when the heart grows tired of carrying what it once believed it needed. Not tired in a dramatic way, not exhausted from battle, but softly weary. Weary of replaying old conversations, weary of defending invisible arguments, weary of holding tension in the body long after the event has passed. And in that gentle weariness, a question arises. What if I no longer need to carry this? Letting go is often misunderstood as something sudden, a dramatic release, a decisive declaration, a door slammed shut. But true letting go is rarely loud. It is slow. It is tender. It unfolds like dusk becoming night. The practice of letting go is not about forcing the heart to forget. It is about guiding it, step by gentle step toward freedom. Tonight we walk that path slowly, not to rush, not to fix, but to soften. Step 1. Acknowledging the pain before anything can be released, it must first be seen. Pain that is denied does not disappear. It burrows. It hides in the folds of the body. It whispers through tension and restlessness. Acknowledging pain is not weakness, it is honesty. Close your eyes for a moment. Bring to mind the feeling you have been carrying, the resentment, the sadness, the disappointment, the quiet anger. Do not analyze the story behind it. Simply feel the emotional tone. Where does it live in your body? Is it a tightness in the chest, a heaviness in the stomach, a subtle ache behind the eyes? Place your awareness there gently and say inwardly, yes, this hurt. Yes, this mattered. Yes, I felt this deeply. Acknowledgement is like opening a window in a dark room. The air begins to move. Often we fear that if we acknowledge pain fully, it will overwhelm us. But what overwhelms us is not the feeling itself. It is the resistance to feeling. Pain wants to be recognized. When it is seen clearly without judgment, it begins to soften. There is no need to dramatize, no need to magnify, just allow the simple truth. This was painful, and I am allowed to feel that. In this acknowledgement, something inside relaxes. The heart no longer has to shout to be heard. Step 2. Allowing the feeling. After acknowledgement comes allowance. Allowance means making space, not pushing away, not clinging, not fixing, just allowing. Imagine your emotion as a wave in the ocean. If you brace against it, the impact feels strong. If you try to suppress it, it gathers force beneath the surface. But if you float, the wave rises and falls beneath you. Allowing does not mean indulging the story. It means permitting the cessation. You might whisper inwardly, it is okay for this feeling to be here. It can stay for now. I do not need it to leave immediately. Notice what happens in the body when you stop demanding change. The shoulders may soften slightly, the breath may deepen, the jaw may loosen. Feelings, when allowed, move naturally. They rise, they peak, they dissolve. It is our fear of them that freezes them in place. Imagine holding a small child who is crying. If you tell the child to stop immediately, the crying may intensify. But if you hold them gently and say, it's okay, I'm here, the tears eventually slow. Your emotions are like that child. They calm in the presence of safety, and safety begins with permission. You are not required to solve this feeling tonight. You are only invited to sit with it, breathing in, breathing out, letting it be. Step 3. Understanding its impermanence. Once the feeling is acknowledged and allowed, a deeper truth can gently emerge. This feeling is not permanent. No emotion, no matter how intense, remains unchanged forever. Think back to a time in your life when something felt unbearable. Perhaps you believed you would never recover, and yet here you are, changed, but still here. Emotions are weather patterns in the sky of awareness. Storms may rage, winds may howl, rain may fall heavily, but the sky itself remains untouched. You are not the storm, you are the sky. Understanding impermanence does not dismiss pain, it contextualizes it. It reminds you, this too will shift. This sensation is moving, This moment is not fixed in time. Notice the feeling in your body right now. Is it exactly the same as it was a minute ago? Perhaps it has softened slightly. Perhaps it has moved location. Perhaps its intensity has changed. Even subtle shifts reveal impermanence. Clinging says, this will never end. Wisdom says, everything changes. When you truly see that a feeling is temporary, the urgency to escape it diminishes. You no longer need to fight what will naturally pass. Letting go begins to feel less like effort and more like trust. Trust in the rhythm of emotional life. Trust in the body's capacity to process and release. Trust that nothing stays forever, not even pain. Step 4. Choosing compassion. After acknowledgement, allowance, and understanding impermanence, the heart becomes ready for compassion. Compassion is the softest step of all. It is the moment you turn toward yourself not as a judge, but as a friend. Imagine speaking to yourself as you would to someone you love. What would you say? Perhaps you did the best you could. You were trying to protect yourself. It makes sense that you felt hurt. Compassion dissolves shame. Often beneath resentment or anger there is shame. Shame for feeling too much, for trusting too easily, for not knowing better. Compassion says, you are human. And in that word, human, there is great relief. You are not required to be perfect. You are not required to respond flawlessly to pain. You are learning, always learning. Compassion may also extend outward. If someone hurt you, it does not mean you must approve of their actions, but you might consider gently. They too were acting from their own confusion. They too have fears and wounds I cannot see. This perspective does not excuse harm. It simply loosens the rigid narrative of villain and victim. It opens space, and space is freedom. There is a teaching often associated with forgiveness. Forgiveness is not an occasional act. It is a constant attitude. Martin Luther King Jr. Though spoken outside Buddhist tradition, this wisdom harmonizes with it. Forgiveness is not a dramatic announcement. It is a gradual softening, a willingness to stop feeding the fire of resentment, a quiet decision to prioritize inner peace over being right. Compassion makes this possible. Without compassion, letting go feels like loss. With compassion, letting go feels like relief. Letting go is surrender, not defeat. Many people fear that letting go means giving up justice, giving up dignity, giving up self-respect. But true surrender is not defeat. Defeat feels heavy and resentful. Surrender feels light and spacious. Defeat says, I lost. Surrender says, I choose peace. When you surrender resentment, you are not declaring that what happened was acceptable. You are declaring that your well-being matters more than replaying the past. Imagine carrying a heavy stone for miles. At first you carry it because you believe it proves something. Perhaps it proves you were wronged. Perhaps it proves you are strong. But eventually the weight becomes unbearable. Setting the stone down does not erase the journey. It simply allows you to continue walking freely. Surrender is placing the stone gently on the ground, not throwing it in anger, not pretending it never existed, just setting it down. Feel that image in your body. Imagine placing your burden beside you. Notice the immediate lightness. That lightness is not weakness. It is strength refined. It is the strength to say, I no longer need this to define me. Letting go does not happen once. It happens again and again. Each time the memory arises, you gently release it. Each time the tension returns, you soften around it. Each time the old story tries to grip your heart, you breathe and open your hand. This is practice, and practice is patient. You may not feel a complete release tonight. That is okay. Even a small loosening is meaningful. And even a single breath of softness is progress. Peace does not demand perfection, it asks only for willingness, resting in inner peace. As you lie here now, notice your body, notice the surface supporting you, notice the rhythm of breath. You have acknowledged the pain, you have allowed the feeling, you have remembered its impermanence, you have chosen compassion. Now simply rest, there is nothing more to do. Inner peace is not something you manufacture. It is what remains when resistance quiets. Feel the space within your chest. Feel the softness in your shoulders. Feel the quiet beneath your thoughts. Letting go is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of spaciousness. And in that spaciousness, sleep comes gently, not forced, not chased, just arriving naturally. As the body grows heavier and the breath grows slower, you might whisper inwardly, I release what no longer serves my peace. I allow life to move, I rest in compassion, I surrender gently. Each word is a soft exhale, each exhale is a small letting go. And as the night deepens around you, the heart learns a new rhythm, not gripping, not bracing, but trusting the flow of experience, trusting the wisdom of impermanence, trusting that surrender is not loss. It is freedom, and in that freedom, you are finally light enough to sleep. Letting go of self-image and ego. There is a story we carry quietly within us, a story about who we are, about how we should be seen, about how others should treat us. This story is not written in ink, it is written in memory, in expectation, in subtle identity. I am someone who deserves respect. I am someone who is kind. I am someone who should not be misunderstood. I am someone who must not fail. These sentences may never be spoken aloud, yet they shape the way we move through the world. This is what we gently call self-image. It is the image we hold of ourselves, the role we believe we must protect, the identity we defend when threatened. Ego in this context is not arrogance, it is not loud pride or boastful display. It is the quiet insistence that this image must remain intact. When something challenges that image, a subtle contraction arises. If someone criticizes us, and we believe we are someone who must always be competent, resentment may form. If someone misunderstands us, and we believe we are someone who must always be seen clearly, anger may rise. If someone disagrees with us, and we believe we are someone who must be right, tension tightens in the chest. The ego is not evil, it is protective, it tries to maintain coherence. It tries to defend a sense of self that feels stable and secure. But in its effort to protect, it often creates suffering. Resentment is frequently born not only from what happened, but from what the event meant to our self-image. Perhaps the pain was not only the harsh words spoken, but the implication that we were wrong. Perhaps the wound was not only the betrayal, but the suggestion that we were naive. Perhaps the tension is not only about the event, but about what it did to the story of who we believe we are. When ego feels threatened, it resists, it argues internally, it defends, it rehearses responses long after the conversation has ended. And in that constant defense, the body tightens. Shoulders rise slightly, the jaw hardens, the breath becomes shallow. Resentment becomes fuel for the ego. It whispers, I was right, they were wrong. I cannot let this go. But what if letting go does not mean surrendering dignity? What if it means surrendering the need to defend an image? There is a gentle teaching from Buddhist philosophy about anatta, Non-self. Non-self does not mean you do not exist. It means that what you call self is not fixed, not solid, not permanent. It is a process, a flow of thoughts, feelings, sensations, and experiences. The identity you defend today is not exactly the same as the one you held 10 years ago, and it will not be the same 10 years from now. Yet ego behaves as though this identity must remain consistent at all costs. It builds walls around it, and those walls require constant maintenance. Imagine carrying a fragile statue everywhere you go. You must protect it from criticism, shield it from misunderstanding, guard it from disagreement. How exhausting. Now imagine realizing the statue is not solid stone, but mist. There is nothing to protect. When someone disagrees with you, it does not shatter your being. When someone misunderstands you, it does not erase your worth. When someone criticizes you, it does not define your essence. The freedom of not needing to be right is profound. Being right often feels safe. It reassures the ego that it remains intact. But being right is not the same as being peaceful. You can win an argument and still feel restless at night. You can prove a point and still carry tension in your body. You can defend your position and still feel lonely. What if peace matters more than victory? What if understanding matters more than superiority? When you release the need to be right, you create space for curiosity. Instead of saying, I must defend myself, you might gently wonder, what can I learn here? Instead of insisting they are wrong, you might ask, is there another perspective? This does not mean abandoning discernment. It does not mean allowing harm. It means loosening the grip on identity. When ego softens, resentment has less fuel. Resentment thrives on the narrative of me versus you, on the rigid boundary between self and other. But when you see that both you and the other person are changing, imperfect, evolving beings, the sharpness begins to fade. There is a famous teaching attributed to the Buddha, as a solid rock is not shaken by the wind, so the wise are not moved by praise or blame. Gautama Buddha. Praise and blame are both reflections of perception. If your self-image depends entirely on praise, blame becomes devastating. If your identity depends on being admired, criticism becomes intolerable. But when you understand that praise and blame are passing winds, you do not need to brace against them. You remain steady, not because you are rigid, but because you are not clinging. Ego clings to reputation. Wisdom rests in authenticity. Ego seeks validation. Wisdom seeks understanding. Ego fears being diminished. Wisdom knows there is no fixed self to diminish. Humility is not humiliation. It is spaciousness. Humility says, I may be mistaken. I am still learning. I do not need to appear flawless. This openness is deeply liberating. When you no longer need to maintain a perfect image, you can relax. Imagine entering a conversation without the pressure to impress. Imagine making a mistake without spiraling into self-defense. Imagine being misunderstood and responding with calm clarity rather than reactive anger. This is the softness of ego released. There is also a teaching from the Heart Sutra that speaks of emptiness. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. Heart Sutra. Emptiness here does not mean nothingness. It means that all forms, including the self, are interdependent and constantly changing. The self you defend is composed of countless influences: family, culture, memory, experience. It is fluid. When you truly understand this, the urgency to protect a rigid identity diminishes. You become lighter. Resentment often says, they disrespected me. But what is the me being disrespected? Is it the living, breathing awareness within you? Or is it the story you tell about who you should be? Awareness itself cannot be insulted. It simply observes. The more you rest in awareness rather than identity, the less reactive you become. Try this gently now. Recall a recent situation where you felt misunderstood. Notice the tightening that may arise. Now, instead of focusing on the story, focus on the sense of I that feels threatened. Where is it located? In the chest, in the throat, in the mind. Observe it as sensation. You may discover that what felt like a solid identity is actually a shifting cluster of sensations and thoughts. When you observe closely, the solidity dissolves. There's only experience unfolding. In that realization, something softens. The need to defend decreases. The heart opens slightly. Letting go of self-image does not erase personality. It does not make you passive or indifferent. It simply removes rigidity. You can still hold values. You can still speak truth. You can still set boundaries. But you do so without the tightness of ego, without the burning need to win, without the constant fear of being diminished. Imagine walking through life with open hands rather than clenched fists. Open hands can receive. Open hands can release. Clenched fists can only hold. As you lie here tonight, reflect gently. Where have I been defending an image? Where have I insisted on being right? Where has my ego been quietly fueling resentment? Do not judge the answers. Simply notice. Then imagine placing that self-image on a soft cloud. Watch it float gently away. You are still here, breathing, aware, whole, without the burden of constant self-defense. There is great peace in humility, not the humility that diminishes you, but the humility that recognizes you are part of something vast. You are not required to carry a perfect identity. You are allowed to be fluid, to change, to grow. When ego softens, relationships soften. Conversations become less combative. Silence becomes less threatening. Even inner dialogue becomes kinder. You no longer need to replay arguments to prove your point. You no longer need to rehearse clever responses in the quiet of the night. You can simply rest. Rest in the understanding that being right is temporary, but being peaceful is enduring. Feel your breath now. With each inhale, imagine spaciousness entering. With each exhale, imagine identity loosening. I do not need to be perfect. I do not need to win. I do not need to defend an image. Let these phrases settle gently into the body. Notice how the chest feels when you release the need to be right. Notice how the shoulders feel when you release the need to impress. Notice how the mind quiets when it no longer constructs arguments. There is immense freedom in this. Freedom not from responsibility, but from rigidity. Freedom not from selfhood, but from self-obsession. And in this freedom, resentment fades naturally, because resentment requires a rigid me to defend. When the me becomes spacious, there is nothing solid to attack, nothing fixed to protect. Only awareness, moving softly through experience. Let the body grow heavy now. Let identity dissolve into the background of consciousness. You are not your praise, you are not your blame, you are not your victories, you are not your mistakes. You are the quiet presence in which all of these arise and pass. Rest there, in that openness, in that humility, in that gentle emptiness that is not void, but vast and alive. And as the night deepens, allow yourself to sleep without armor, without defense, without the weight of proving who you are. Simply breathing, simply being, simply free. Night reflection, releasing before sleep. Night has a way of telling the truth. When the voices of the day fall silent, when the last message has been answered, when the final light is turned off, something within us begins to stir. It is often at night that resentment quietly returns. During the day, we are distracted. We are busy building, speaking, solving, achieving. But in the soft darkness, without noise to defend us, the heart becomes honest. Old conversations replay, unfinished arguments echo. Words we wish we had said or wished we had never said rise like mist from a quiet lake. Why does resentment surface at night? Because night removes our armor. In daylight, we can pretend we are unaffected. We can distract ourselves with tasks and roles. But when the body lies still, the mind has space to wander, and it often wanders to what still hurts. The ancient teachers understood this rhythm of the heart. They knew that suffering does not disappear simply because we ignore it. As the Buddha gently taught, nothing can harm you as much as your own unguarded thoughts. Night reveals whether our thoughts are guarded by wisdom or tangled in old pain. But this is not a problem, it is an invitation. Night is not your enemy, it is your mirror. When resentment appears before sleep, it is not trying to disturb you, it is asking to be seen. And tonight, instead of resisting it, we will meet it gently. Why the heart softens in the dark. There is something about darkness that makes us vulnerable. In darkness, the senses quiet down, the eyes close, the body rests, the outer world fades, and the inner world grows brighter. Unresolved emotions often wait for silence. They wait until the mind is no longer racing forward. They wait for stillness. Resentment is patient, it hides beneath activity. But when the body is horizontal and the breath slows, it rises like a forgotten tide. This is why so many people struggle to sleep. Not because the bed is uncomfortable, not because the room is too dark, but because the heart is carrying something heavy. Resentment says, remember what happened. It whispers, don't forget how you were hurt. It believes it is protecting you. But protection through tension is not peace. True safety comes from release. And so tonight, before sleep, we practice the art of gentle letting go. Not to erase memory, not to excuse harm, but to free the heart from carrying what it no longer needs to hold. A gentle night reflection. If you're listening to this in bed, allow your body to settle. Feel the surface beneath you. Let your shoulders sink. Let your jaw soften. Allow your tongue to rest naturally. Take a slow breath in and a long, unhurried breath out again. In and out. There is nothing to achieve here, nothing to fix. We are simply becoming aware. Bring your attention softly to the center of your chest, not to analyze, just to notice. Is there tightness, warmth, a dull ache, a subtle resistance? Whatever is present, let it be there. If resentment is lingering tonight, you might sense it as a contraction, a holding. Perhaps an image appears, a person, a moment. Do not push it away. Simply observe. The Buddha once said, in the seen there is only the seen. In the heard there is only the heard. In the felt there is only the felt. No story is required, no judgment is needed. Let the image float like a cloud passing across a wide sky. You are the sky, not the cloud. Naming without blame. If it feels safe, gently name what is present. This is hurt. This is disappointment. This is anger. Not, this is wrong. Not, I shouldn't feel this. Just simple recognition. Naming creates space. It transforms a storm into a passing weather pattern. Resentment thrives in confusion. It softens in clarity. Feel where it lives in the body. Is it in the throat, the stomach, the heart? Place your awareness there like a warm hand. No pressure, just presence. Awareness is warmth, and warmth melts ice. Breathing with the feeling. Now imagine breathing directly into the area of tension. As you inhale, invite space. As you exhale, invite softness. You do not need to force the tension away. Simply allow it to be held by your gentle attention. Imagine that the feeling is a small child who has been waiting to be noticed. Instead of arguing with it, you sit beside it. Instead of silencing it, you listen. Ask quietly within, what are you trying to protect? Resentment often protects vulnerability. It shields sadness, it hides fear. If tears come, let them. If nothing happens, that is fine too. This is not performance. This is companionship with yourself. Understanding before release. Sometimes resentment remains because it believes that letting go means saying the hurt did not matter, but letting go does not erase truth. It simply releases the grip around it. You can acknowledge harm without carrying hatred. You can remember without reliving. Whisper gently to yourself, I allow this pain to exist, and I allow it to change. Everything changes, even this. Even this impermanence is not only a philosophy, it is happening right now. The sensation in your chest is not the same as it was a minute ago. The breath you're taking is new. Life is always moving. Resentment is heavy because it resists movement. Tonight we practice flowing again, offering compassion. Now bring compassion into the space. Compassion does not mean agreement. It does not mean approval. It means understanding suffering. First, offer compassion to yourself. Place a gentle phrase in your heart. May I be free from this burden. May I rest. May I feel safe. Let the words fall slowly like petals on water. If you feel ready, extend a small amount of compassion toward the person involved, only if it feels possible. You might say, just like me, this person has suffered. Just like me, this person seeks happiness. You do not have to feel warmth. You do not have to feel forgiveness yet. Simply plant a seed. Compassion is not immediate perfection. It is gradual softening, and softening is enough for tonight. Letting go before sleep. Letting go before sleep is not dramatic, it is subtle. It is the decision not to rehearse the story again. It is choosing rest over replay. As you lie in the quiet, imagine placing the resentment into a small bowl, not throwing it away, not smashing it, just placing it down beside your bed. You can return to it tomorrow if necessary, but tonight you do not carry it into sleep. Feel the difference between holding something and setting it down. Notice the lightness. Sleep is a form of surrender. Every night, we trust the darkness to hold us. We release control. We close our eyes. We let the world continue without our supervision. Resentment resists surrender. It wants vigilance. But rest requires trust. Trust that life continues. Trust that healing unfolds. Trust that you do not need to solve everything before morning. A short guided meditation script. Now let us move gently into a final reflection. Close your eyes if they are not already closed. Take one slow breath in and a slow breath out. Feel the weight of your body supported. Silently repeat, I have carried enough today. Pause, I allow myself to rest. Pause, if there is pain, I acknowledge it. Pause, if there is anger, I see it. Pause. But tonight, I choose peace. Let the breath become natural. Imagine your thoughts like leaves floating down a stream. You do not chase them. You do not block them. You simply watch as they drift away. With each exhale, release a little more effort. With each inhale, receive a little more softness. Say quietly within, may I sleep free. May I sleep light. May I wake with a softer heart. Allow silence now. Rest in the gentle rhythm of breathing. There is nothing more to do, nothing more to resolve. Night is holding you. The past is not knocking at the door. It is fading into the background like a distant echo. Your heart does not need to be perfect to rest. It only needs to be willing to soften. Encouraging emotional release. before rest. Before sleep takes you, remember this. Resentment is not proof of strength. Release is. Holding on is not loyalty to your pain, it is repetition. You deserve more than repetition, you deserve renewal. Each night is a small death of the day. Each morning is a quiet rebirth. What you release tonight creates space for tomorrow. So let the jaw unclench, let the brow smooth, let the chest loosen. Let the story dissolve into simple sensation. Let sensation dissolve into breath. Let breath dissolve into sleep. You are allowed to rest without finishing every argument in your mind. You are allowed to rest without winning. You are allowed to rest without proving anything. In the stillness of night, lay down not only your body but also your burdens. The art of letting go is not completed in one evening, but every night you practice a little, and little by little the heart becomes lighter and lighter until sleep arrives like a quiet blessing and you drift unburdened into the gentle dark. Conclusion. The ongoing journey of letting go. There is no final moment when we can say, now I have let go of everything. Letting go is not a single act. It is not a dramatic farewell. It is not a door that closes forever with one decisive gesture. It is a way of walking, a way of breathing, a way of living gently inside the changing tides of the heart. Throughout this journey, we have explored resentment, tension, ego, and the quiet space before sleep. But none of these reflections were meant to create perfection. They were invitations, invitations to soften, invitations to see clearly, invitations to loosen the tight grip around what hurts. Letting go is not a destination, it is a practice that unfolds again and again in the smallest moments of daily life. When someone misunderstands you, when a memory resurfaces, when your pride is touched, when fear whispers its familiar story, each moment offers a choice to tighten or to soften, to hold or to release. And this choice is not made once, it is made gently, patiently, 1,000 times. Letting go as a lifelong companion. There will be days when letting go feels natural. The heart feels wide, the mind feels clear, forgiveness flows easily, and there will be days when resentment returns like an old friend, knocking at the door with familiar arguments. This is not failure, this is humanity. Even the most awakened beings walk through waves of emotion. What changed was not the absence of feeling, but the relationship to it. Letting go becomes easier when we stop expecting ourselves to never struggle again. Instead of asking, why is this still here? We can ask, how can I meet this with kindness today? Kindness toward ourselves is part of the art. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not less whole because something still hurts. The path of release is circular, not linear. We revisit lessons from deeper levels. We forgive again with more understanding. We release again with more softness, and each time a little more space opens. Freedom as inner spaciousness. What is freedom? Many imagine freedom as control over circumstances, freedom from difficulty, freedom from conflict, freedom from discomfort. But life will continue to change. People will continue to misunderstand. Loss will still arrive. Aging will still unfold. True freedom is not the absence of change, it is the presence of space. Space between stimulus and response. Space between thought and belief. Space between emotion and identity. Inner spaciousness is the quiet realization. This feeling is here, but it is not all of me. When resentment arises, spaciousness says there is room for this, and there is room for peace too. When anger flares, spaciousness whispers, this is a passing wave, had not the entire ocean. Freedom is not hard, it is open. It does not push experience away, it allows it to move. Imagine standing in a wide field. Clouds pass overhead, some are dark, some are luminous. But the sky does not resist, it remains vast. When we cling to resentment, our awareness becomes small, like a room with no windows. When we let go, walls dissolve, windows open, air flows. This is liberation in daily life, not a mystical escape, but a widening, a softening, a quiet expansion of the heart. The courage to release again and again, letting go requires courage, not the loud courage of battle, but the quiet courage of surrender. It takes strength to release the story that justifies your anger. It takes humility to admit you may not see everything clearly. It takes vulnerability to drop the shield of resentment and feel the tenderness beneath. Yet each act of release returns you to yourself, not the defended self. Not the image-driven, but the simple breathing self who longs for peace. Sometimes you may wonder, if I let go, who will I be without this story? Resentment can become part of identity. It can shape how we see ourselves, the wronged one, the misunderstood one, the strong one who never forgets. But beyond these identities is something quieter, something softer, something freer. When we release resentment, we are not losing ourselves. We are rediscovering the space that was always there beneath the tension. Peace is not passive. There's a misunderstanding that letting go means becoming passive, that release means weakness. But peace is not passive. Peace is active awareness. It is choosing not to feed what harms you. It is refusing to rehearse pain as a form of loyalty. It is recognizing that inner tension does not protect you from future hurt. It only extends past hurt into the present. When you let go, you are not denying the past. You are refusing to let it define your present consciousness. This is strength, quiet, steady strength. A strength that does not shout, but endures. Returning to the breath. If ever the path feels overwhelming, return to something simple. Return to the breath. One inhale, one exhale. Letting go happens in this small rhythm. With each exhale, there is a natural release. The body knows how to let go. It does so thousands of times each day. The mind can learn from the body. Just as the lungs release air without regret, the heart can release tension without fear. Breathing teaches impermanence. No breath can be held forever, and no emotion, no resentment, no pain can remain unchanged. Life is movement. When we align with movement, we suffer less. A final reflection before rest. As this journey gently closes, you may notice that nothing dramatic has happened. No fireworks, no grand declaration, just a quiet deepening. A subtle shift, a slightly softer heart, and that is enough. Letting go does not require perfection. It requires willingness. Willingness to look, willingness to feel, willingness to release when the moment is right. Tonight, or whenever you listen to these words, remember this. You are allowed to be at peace, even if everything is not resolved. You are allowed to rest, even if forgiveness is still unfolding. You are allowed to feel free, even while life remains imperfect. Freedom is not somewhere else. It is here, in the space between your thoughts, in the softness of your breath, in the choice not to cling. A final inspiring quote. The Buddha offered this gentle reminder. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. Peace is not hidden in the behavior of others. It is not stored in perfect outcomes. It is not waiting at the end of every apology. It lives within awareness, within spaciousness, within the courage to release what tightens the heart. When you let go even slightly, you taste this peace. and once tasted, it becomes easier to return again and again. The open horizon. Imagine standing at the edge of the ocean. The tide moves in, the tide moves out. You do not command it, you do not resist it. You simply stand, feet in the sand, breathing with the rhythm. Letting go is like this. Sometimes the tide carries away something heavy. Sometimes it brings back a forgotten memory, but you remain aware, spacious, open. There is no need to hurry. This journey continues in tomorrow's conversations and next week's challenges, in quiet evenings before sleep. Each moment invites release, each breath invites freedom, and little by little the art of letting go becomes not something you practice, but something you are. A wide sky, a gentle field, an open horizon. May you walk this path with patience. May you soften without fear. May you discover the vast, quiet freedom that has always lived within you. And when resentment knocks again, as it sometimes will, may you greet it with awareness, with compassion, and with the quiet confidence that you know the way home.